The year was 750 CE when the black banners of the Abbasids rose over the deserts of Khorasan. They had overthrown the Umayyad Caliphate in a wave of rebellion that swept from Persia to the banks of the Tigris. The Abbasids claimed legitimacy through their descent from Al-Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad, and with this lineage came a promise to restore the purity of Islam and unite the fractured Muslim world. From their victory emerged a new capital, Baghdad, founded in 762 by Caliph al-Mansur. The city's design was a masterpiece, a great circular plan, its walls and gates radiating power, its markets and palaces teeming with life. Positioned between the Tigris and Euphrates, Baghdad became the beating heart of the Islamic world, a crossroads for caravans from China, India, Africa, and the Mediterranean. The House of Wisdom under the Abbasids, knowledge itself became a treasure as valuable as gold. In the early 9th century, Caliph al-Ma'mun established the legendary Bait al-Hikmah, or House of Wisdom. Here, scholars from across the empire, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Persian, Greek, and Indian, gathered to translate ancient texts into Arabic, preserving the legacies of Aristotle, Galen, and Euclid. The House of Wisdom was more than a library. It was a research center. Astronomers charted the stars, physicians wrote medical encyclopedias, and mathematicians refined algebra and introduced the decimal system. The Abbasids understood that power was not only in armies and wealth, but in ideas. It was in Baghdad that al-Khwarizmi laid the foundations of algorithms, Ibn Sina, Avicenna, advanced medicine, and al-Biruni measured the earth with astonishing accuracy. The Abbasid Caliphate became the intellectual lighthouse of the medieval world. Splendor and shadows. In the reigns of Harun al-Rashid and al-Ma'mun, Baghdad reached its zenith. The Arabian Nights, a collection of tales that would enchant generations, emerged from the courtly culture of this era. Embassies from China, Byzantium, and Europe arrived bearing gifts, while Baghdad's bazaars overflowed with silks from the east, furs from the north, spices from India, and gold from Africa. But behind the splendor, cracks began to form. The very diversity of the empire created internal tensions. Arabs, Persians, Turks, Berbers, and others jostled for influence. The court grew decadent, spending vast sums on palaces, gardens, and festivals, while distant provinces groaned under heavy taxation. Provincial governors, often appointed from powerful families, began to act like kings in their own right. Revolts broke out in North Africa, Persia, and Central Asia. The once unified Abbasid authority began to fray. Faith, philosophy, and fire the Abbasid era was also marked by intense religious and philosophical debate. The Mu'tazilites, a school of Islamic thought that emphasized reason and logic, found favor in the court of al-Ma'mun, who declared that the Quran was a created work, not eternal. This sparked the Mihna, an inquisition that forced scholars to accept the doctrine under threat of punishment. Many resisted, most famously Ahmad ibn Hanbal, founder of the Hanbali school of Islamic law, enduring imprisonment and torture for refusing to compromise their beliefs. This struggle between rationalism and traditionalism would echo throughout Islamic history. Meanwhile, political factions vied for control behind the scenes. The influence of Turkic slave soldiers, the Ghilman, grew rapidly, foreshadowing the power they would later wield over the caliphs themselves. Storm clouds on the horizon. By the 10th century, the Abbasids' power was a shadow of its former self. Baghdad was still magnificent, but the caliphs were increasingly figureheads, manipulated by powerful viziers and military leaders. The empire fractured into semi-independent states: the Fatimids in Egypt, the Buyids in Persia, and the Umayyads reborn in Al-Andalus. Yet the black banners still flew over Baghdad, a symbol of unity for the Muslim world, even as the political reality crumbled. The city's wealth and prestige remained unmatched, and its scholars continued to advance science, medicine, and literature. But in the east, beyond the mountains and deserts, a new force was gathering, one that would sweep across the world like a storm, leaving cities in ashes. The Mongols were coming. By the mid-13th century, the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad was a shadow of its golden age. The city still glittered with wealth and learning, but the caliph's authority barely reached beyond its walls. Provincial rulers acted as kings in their own territories, while the caliph, al-Mustasim, seemed more a custodian of tradition than a ruler prepared for war. Far beyond the empire's borders, in the endless steppes of Mongolia, a new power had risen under the descendants of Genghis Khan. The Mongols were a storm of hooves and steel, an army that could travel farther, strike harder, and adapt faster than any in the known world. By 1251, Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis, had been tasked by his brother, the great Khan Munka, with conquering the Islamic heartlands. One by one, the Mongols crushed the fortresses of the assassins in Persia, dismantled kingdoms, and advanced westward. Baghdad, wealthy, symbolic, and strategically placed, was their next prize. Warnings ignored, Hulagu sent envoys to Caliph al-Mustasim, demanding his submission. It was not an empty request. Those who defied the Mongols often ceased to exist. But al-Mustasim, either misjudging the threat or blinded by pride, dismissed them. Some chroniclers say his advisors assured him that the caliph's religious prestige would protect the city. Others claim his vizier, Ibn al-Alqami, underestimated Hulagu's power or harbored his own ambitions. Whatever the truth, Baghdad failed to raise a meaningful army. Reinforcements from other Muslim states never came. The political fractures of the Islamic world meant each ruler looked to his own survival. The Siege of 1258. In January 1258, Hulagu's army appeared before Baghdad. Estimates of their numbers vary, but most sources place them between 100,000 and 150,000, including Chinese engineers, Persian auxiliaries, and siege masters from across the Mongol Empire. The Mongols surrounded the city, building trenches and siege lines to cut off escape. Their engineers constructed mangonels and trebuchets, and they brought with them a terrifying arsenal of Chinese siege technology. Catapults, capable of hurling massive stones and incendiary bombs. The Tigris and its canals could not protect Baghdad this time. Mongol forces bridged the waters, sealing the city from all sides. Inside, fear spread. The Abbasid capital had never faced such a foe. The breach. The Mongols began their bombardment, hurling projectiles day and night. Towers crumbled, walls split, and fire tore through neighborhoods. The defenders fought with desperate bravery, but the city's garrison was too small, too ill-prepared, and too poorly led to withstand Hulagu's war machine. After little more than a week, breaches appeared in multiple sections of the wall. Hulagu ordered the final assault. Mongol troops poured into the city from every direction, cutting down defenders and civilians alike. What followed was one of the most infamous sacks in world history. The burning of the City of Peace. For 7 days, Baghdad burned. The Mongols slaughtered soldiers and civilians without distinction. The great libraries, repositories of centuries of accumulated knowledge, were destroyed. Some say the Tigris ran black with the ink of countless manuscripts thrown into its waters, and red with the blood of its citizens. The House of Wisdom, that beacon of learning for the medieval world, was reduced to ash. Scholars were killed, treasures looted, and mosques desecrated. The Mongols dismantled centuries of cultural achievement in a matter of days. Caliph al-Mustasim was captured. Hulagu refused to spill royal blood, so the caliph was executed in a grim manner. Most accounts say he was rolled in a carpet and trampled by horses. When the Mongols withdrew in 1258, they left behind a void where the beating heart of the Islamic world had once been. The city of peace was reduced to rubble and corpses. The Tigris no longer carried the laughter of poets or the debate of scholars. Instead, its currents were choked with the ashes of manuscripts and the blood of Baghdad's people. The Abbasid Caliphate, as a political entity, was gone. Its vast bureaucracy had been dismantled, its army annihilated, its palaces destroyed. Yet its name still carried weight across the Muslim world. To many, the Caliph was more than a ruler. He was the symbolic heir of the Prophet, the guardian of unity in faith. The Abbasids in Cairo, in 1261, a surviving member of the Abbasid family, al-Mustansir II, fled to Cairo, which was under the control of the Mamluks, a military caste of slave soldiers who had risen to power in Egypt. There, the Abbasid Caliphate was reborn in name only. The new caliphs in Cairo had no armies, no provinces, and no political power. Instead, they became spiritual figureheads, endorsing the authority of the Mamluk sultans. This arrangement was mutually beneficial. The Mamluks gained legitimacy through the caliph's blessing, and the Abbasid name was preserved, if only as a shadow of its former glory. The Mamluk shield under Mamluk protection, Cairo became the new center of Islamic learning and power. The Mamluks themselves had earned renown for halting the Mongol advance at the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, a victory that preserved much of the Islamic world from Mongol domination. The Abbasid caliphs, though powerless in political matters, participated in religious ceremonies, issued symbolic decrees, and presided over coronations. They were a living link to the golden age of Islam, a reminder of unity in a fractured world. The legacy of the Black Banners. Though the political empire was gone, the Abbasids' cultural and scientific legacy endured. The works produced in Baghdad's House of Wisdom had already spread across continents, influencing European scholars during the Renaissance. Arabic translations of Greek texts, mathematical concepts like algebra, and medical treatises continued to shape knowledge long after the Mongols had gone. The Abbasids had also left a lasting architectural imprint, from the Great Mosque of Samarra to the round city of Baghdad itself. Their courts had nurtured poets, historians, and philosophers whose influence still resonates. The final fall, the Abbasid Caliphate in exile, survived in Cairo for nearly 2.5 centuries. But in 1517, the Ottoman Sultan Selim I conquered Egypt. The last Abbasid caliph in Cairo, al-Mutawakkil III, was taken to Constantinople, where the caliphal title eventually passed to the Ottoman sultans. With that, the Abbasid line ended, not in battle, but through the quiet absorption into another empire. Yet the black banners that had once risen over Baghdad remained a potent symbol, invoked in poetry, politics, and even rebellion for centuries. Final reflection. The Abbasid Caliphate's story is one of both brilliance and fragility. It showed the heights a civilization can reach when it embraces knowledge, culture, and diversity, but also the dangers of political fragmentation and complacency. In the end, the Caliphate's body died in Baghdad, but its spirit traveled the world, carried in the books, ideas, and memories it left behind.